I'm currently working as a curator on an exhibition for the Palestinian Museum in collaboration with a lot of the British institutions here in London that have archaeological pieces from artifacts from Palestine that were excavated there in the 1920s and 30s. And a lot of them are actually from Gaza. So, looking at the history of excavation in Gaza, there are some of these volumes like Ancient Gaza, numbers 1 to 5, that Petrie, who was known as the father of the pots, a very famous archaeologist, documented and published as part of his job at the Institute of Archaeology, which is now the UCL Department of Archaeology here. And so the UCL Archaeology Department now has a lot of the remains in Gaza, from Gaza, here in their archives in London. And their keeper is Dr. Rachel Sparks, who was kind enough to share some of that with me. So this is one of those books that I thought would be really interesting to share with you. It's the last publication that Petrie published in Gaza. It includes these incredible jewelry pieces that have the star of Astarte, who's the goddess of love and war, these incredible flowers and glass pendants and glass and ceramic rings that are now at the British Museum here in London. So if we go through it, you'll be able to see how many archaeological pieces that were excavated there are actually now here. This is the pendant of Astarte. She's also the goddess of fertility. And so you can see some of the triangles here between her legs, and her breasts are always visible, even in a very abstract form like the one on the right. And it's strange that she's the goddess of love and war and fertility, because here we are now thinking about genocide and being reminded that actually we have an incredible history of goddesses like Astarte that would have been worshipped at the time to protect under wars. And these are the really interesting archaeological drawings of the site that they excavated. So this is one of them. And a lot of the time they would excavate tombs. So if we're looking at, as everybody's watching the news now, looking at archaeological sites of Gaza today like these is very strange, right? Because now it's covered in rubble, and underneath it, you have tombs that were actually hollowed out by the British in the 1930s. And so now you have actually the opposite. You have the rubble that's kind of containing bodies in them today, unfortunately, as we have a lot of our shuhada in Palestine, a lot of our martyrs there in Gaza are actually, their bodies have not been exhumed yet. And then here you have the hollowed out land that was excavated by the British in the 1930s. And some of the scarabs here, the scarab seals, are some of the most important material that came out of Gaza. I think it's some of the largest collections of scarabs ever found in the world. A lot of them have ancient Egyptian motifs. As you can see here, you have some of the hieroglyphics. It was considered, part of the same territory, even though they were Canaanite in Gaza, that there was a cultural kind of exchange and as well as occupation at the time. So you have the same motifs kind of being used across the border. And of course, we have all of the vessels like these. These are alabaster stone, which are incredibly beautiful stone. It's a very thin kind of glowing stone. So with the light, it kind of shines really beautifully. The Qamariya window comes from the word moon window. And the moon window actually was made out of stone before it was made out of plaster and glass. So initially in Yemen, they were making them out of the same alabaster as this one. So the windows would have been made out of this as well. And it goes on, thousands and thousands of pages. This is just one volume of many beautiful painted pottery that I am really inspired by as well. So when we're thinking about fragments and, found objects, I think back to these and wonder, who made them? What are the motifs mean? Looks like here there's a portrait. They're slightly Greek in form in this case, Hellenistic. And as you see the numbers here, these are measurements of skulls. So the same person that did the excavations in Gaza, this guy Petrie, he was also a eugenicist. So he would collect from the tombs that he was excavating all the skulls as well and bring them back to the UK. Now they're here actually in Cambridge. and the Palestinian skulls are here in Cambridge. He measured them to think about the measurement of skulls in relation to intelligence and so on. So this document is an incredibly violent one, and it's signed, Flinders Petrie. That's just one volume. So you can imagine what the other ones look like. So you have thousands of these. And then I'll show you some more images from Gaza that I find also really inspiring from the PEF collection, which is the Palestine Exploration Fund, which was also an incredibly useful archive to access here. The woman that runs it is Felicity, who's a fantastic woman, Felicity Copping, and she's shared some of these images of ancient Gaza with me that I really love as well. So you can see, the old villas and the palm farms and the mud houses that were used with mud brick, the same mud brick that would have been making the glass furnaces to melt glass in. So the story of the landscape is similar across the whole territory. So the mud brick that would have been made here is the same mud brick that would have been made where the furnaces were found just a few kilometers north of there. Here are some more images of the landscape that's constantly under war. So here you have Gaza also in World War I, 1917, photographed by the Australian soldiers that were there to support the British. Some of the tombs that were excavated, the sea, and people collecting water, which is very similar to what's happening today. Exactly 100 years later, more than 100 years later, you have children and families going to beg for water from the UN. And here you have a colonial figure on the horse. It looks like he has a whip as well. Chaos with the water vessels made out of the pottery that then was excavated as well. So, that's why when we say that our history and our cultural heritage to us is living, it's because, it's literally living, right? It's still being used. And even in 1917, even if they, were considered Roman vessels that were being excavated, they were still being used in 1917 as actual water vessels. And we still use them today. My grandmother keeps a pottery vessel in her house to just keep the water cool. So to us, it's not archaeology, it's a living heritage. And seeing these photos is really helpful to kind of ground that history.
Thanks for checking out this GEEX Shorts episode. This is just one of 10 chapters featuring the speaker's artwork, artistic practice, and direct conversations with the community. The full-length video, only publicly available for a limited time, can be found in the GEEX Talks subscriber archive, where you can also discover hours of content on even more contemporary glass artists and researchers. As a BIPOC and artist-led organization, GEEX redefines the culture of contemporary glass by canonizing artists and thinkers who have been historically marginalized in the field. If you'd like to support this effort, subscribe to GEEX and gain access to exclusive content. For more info, visit geeks.glass/support.